Hello, welcome to this level 3 video. My name is Allie with A. Marie Speaks, and this section of videos is within my energetic system series where I'm talking about systems, right? And here in level 3 we are diving into the systems within. This video is sort of an intro. Sorry, my hair is a little crazy. An intro to Section 2. If you haven't seen these other videos that I've already done for level 3, sort of what I'm going to call Section 1, I definitely suggest watching those. You can watch them after this video, but they really should be looked at first. And just to sort of sum it up very quickly, in case anybody is new and isn't following suit with this series. Our inner systems, the system that is you, is the whole. And when we're diving into this whole system, we have to understand that it is a reflection of many things happening at once, many internal processes. All of these processes individually come together to create a whole. And the individual processes are fractal in their representation of the whole. And what does that mean? It means that each bit contains the essence or the instructions or the bare bones, or the architecture, the foundation of the whole within it. So each gets to play out their own version of the whole. So say the whole could be 0 from 9, all of these numbers. Infinity contains 0 through 9. That's what the whole of the universe is. The totality of our purpose could be from 0 to 9. Every individual piece of life within this whole universe has the availability within it of 0 through 9. However, each is a fractal representation. It has its own place setting within the sort of mosaic that creates the whole. And because of that place setting, the coordinates that it's given, that it's birthed with, it is sort of given a number or range that it is designated or bestowed to sort of examine within a scope, of directionality, an area that it's given to work within. Now, within that area is actually unlimited itself. That area in itself, when creator consciousness is birthed into that area and becomes the first person view inhabiting that role, zooms itself down and becomes embodied in that world, you are given your own infinite imagination space to work with, because everything's fractal. Everything is an echo of the same. And so, as, say, Allie, I might have been given just number 1. Life purpose number 1. But within 1, the scope of 1 contains all of the gradients between the little counter of 1 all the way to 2. Now we can say 1, 1.5, 2, and that gives me a half and a half to work with. I have the half that's before 1.5, and then I have that second half that leads up to 2. I have 2 different, halves to explore and examine. But when I do that, right, then I realize, actually, I could call that half 0.5, and then I have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, all of that to work with here. Actually, I have 4 distinct things to work with in here, and over here I have 0.5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Wow. Actually, I have all those 4 other distinct things to work with over here. And then you say to yourself, as I look at 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, and I examine all the ground in there, and I start to see details, and I say, wow, actually, I could say 1.01, and then I have 1.02, 1.03, all the way through. I've created a whole other place setting here in my availability to examine all of this stuff that actually happens between 1.0 and this 1.1, 1.0 and 1.1. There's actually 1.01, 1.02, 1.03, 1.04, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 becomes 1.1, right? That availability to dive into things, that is our our gift of free will, our conscious creatorship mindset. That is the gift right there. And that is what fuels all of the processes and how we dive into our layers, like I talked about in Section 1, mind, body, and spirit. Each one of those is a layer, a whole reality of working within there that has the capability, just like that, to dive in and create manyness and to explore for as long as you need to, and to create as much definition as you'd like to. And so if you missed that and are jumping in here to start and are new, you can check those videos. I will put them in the description of Mind, Body, and Spirit videos so that you can hear me talk more in depth about those individual systems and processes that happen within them. Here for Section 2, what I really want to talk about is how those processes all come together, how they interact and co-create the vibration, the image, the presentation of a whole. And what that whole looks like, how they all come together, and what kind of charge balances out after all the transactions happen. What's the overall charge happening? That's polarity. That's the second half. That's purpose. That's seeing the whole of the system and what the whole of the system is doing as a process. Not the individual processes that make up the system, that define the boundaries, that do the work of the system, why the system is the system. That has to do with the processes. That's the first section. The second section is the greater purpose. What does the system do as a whole? How does it interact with others? How does it manage, store, assess, utilize its energy as a whole, overall, right? And this is why I say it's so important to understand, and we talk about the processes first, and to really get in there and to become that boss that worked its way up, or that boss that really gets down and does all the dirty work with each employee and each worker underneath it. The CEO who built it from the ground up, really. Because what are you, other than your CEO, your God creator source to this system? You are infinite intelligence that runs this system. And to your cells, to the individual tiniest workers within you, me, alias consciousness, is that fractal representation of God. I am creator consciousness. And I am source to each cell, right? Each cell serves a purpose. The purpose of the whole is the self. But it's not a self-serving negative self. It is if I choose my overall polarity to be, right? If all of my processes are aligned with intentions that are negative, and if I'm hoarding and storing for self-preservation at the expense of others, not caring about the detriment I'm causing to the system as a whole, whether the system is humanity, society, earth, my life, my family, my body, even just you as a system. We can be negatively aligned in our systems, causing our self-harm. All of our systems working against and having wars inside of ourselves. And we wonder why we're full of disease, full of shadows, rotting from the inside out and having very miserable experiences here. Because we're choosing to. And our intentions, the echoes within our systems happening here, are negatively aligned. And like I've used this banking model so many times, and I actually like it because it's almost like you say corporate banking and immediately we think of matrix, negatively aligned systems. But flop it on its head, get the inversion out of there, flip it upright, and see the truths there in the banking corporate model. And there can be a place setting available for great positive working, organic flow of free-flowing information, transactions. It's available. So I like to use that model because it's kind of like a pun. It's kind of a joke. And a trigger point, too, But within the banking model, right, your intentions and stuff is like what music you're playing. The playlist that plays just not only through the corporate headquarters where all the bosses meet and they do their day-to-day, they talk about, external business functions of the bank and how the bank works in the world and stuff like that with marketing and all that kind of jazz, investments and stuff. Those are external things. what kind of music they listen to on their playlist. They send out, they send their intentions, their energy, their vibe and emotions about the business, about work and service, and their ideas, right? That permeates down from corporate headquarters, from those floors, down into the managers' floors, into like the CEO, the CFO, all of these like operational managers and stuff. They hear the same music, but they hear it played through the bosses because they're getting the music through the floors. They're getting the instructions through those bosses. They tell them what to do with the meetings and stuff like that. They set the agenda. They set the flow. How are you, as your CEO, how are you setting the flow for your internal bank, right? What are you echoing down to those big bosses? And then it comes to, okay, well, what are those big bosses? How do they incorporate and hear it? And how do they sing out their instructions? And they allow the music to permeate through their floor. And that comes down into, more of the managerial workers. And then that permeates down into the workers. And then that permeates down into maybe like you have even like industrial kind of factory type of working happening within the cells, right? What kind of flavors down there, and how does the music and the directionality flow down there? Just each little servicer on the worker chain, do they know that their job is important? Do they know they're loved? Do they know that the creator, the whole, has done their job before, has been there tying a button on? Do they know that if they don't feel good and they're sick, that literally the owner of the company will come down to the floor and take on their job and tell them, go home early. I'll do your job for you today. Is service of love and unconditional energy just being there because you love the job, right? Because if the maker of the service, if the absolute builder of the CFO or the board guy who built it from the ground up, he really loves to make pants. If the guy who hems the bottom of the pants is sick that day, that owner will say, wow, I haven't hemmed a leg in a long time. I really love to hem up a pant leg or whatever. Let me get down there and do that for a little while. It's like riding a bike. They get back into the feeling of the sewing machine. Oh, the feeling of the thimble. Oh, yeah, you get into this little habit thing that you remember, that you learned the experiential wisdom of the mechanics, of the tactile processes. There's real energy transactions that happen on physical, mental, emotional, spiritual levels all the time, with every process, with every role, no matter how minuscule and tiny it might seem. Just like a little cell down in your lung, a little tiny cell in your abdomen fat wall or whatever. You think it's insignificant, but no. They each are just as significant as you are. Because think of you within 8 billion people. How easily can you feel insignificant? How easily can you feel insignificant at a university with only a couple thousand kids when you go there for the first time? Let alone to think about 1 billion people in the world. Every layer of consciousness is faced with the same sort of subset of parameters. And when we understand that, we know that, we have appreciation for that, then we can really own the overall purpose, the polarity. Then we won't be surprised at what our aura looks like. Then we're not surprised at how people interact with us out there. We're not, people don't take advantage of us. People don't treat us in ways that we aren't expecting, because we are continuously living with transparency, and interacting with honorability, and when you do that, it reverberates out and it calls likeness towards it. And again, this is why we focus on doing the inner processes and learning how the exercises with ourselves, all the muscle work actually benefits ourselves. So we want to do it. We feel the great benefits of it because it's great internal work when we exercise those internal muscles, when we go down into the processes, I'm going to create some good meditations on that to take us into those. But for Section 2, I really kind of want to turn our back to processes and talk about overall functionality, talk about energy alchemy and a balancing, right? Because what is polarity really but balancing? It's never still. It's never the end of it. It's never the end all be all. Everything, any mistake can be corrected and any great thing can be upset, everything can always change and come back around. And when we understand that, that's the truth of it. It's not linear. It's not sequential to where you finally reach an end and that's it. It's a spiraling cyclic thing. And remembering that, residing in that, will really create more comfortability for yourself, where you won't be rushing yourself. You won't have this sort of spectators critiquing happening. When's this going to happen? When's that going to happen? When's the end? When I'm going to reach this? You know, you'll be able to smooth into the present moment more, to understanding that and accepting where you're at, and knowing that you can only be where you're at right now. There's no other way for you. And if you want another thing, if you're seeking something different, then the answers are within. And that is the guidance that you need to go do some light and shadow work, that you need to do some assessments and some clearing, some healing, right? Some forgiveness or gratitude, whatever kind of flavor you might need. Oh, my computer is dying. Sorry. Not that I want to keep this video short anyways, but it's at 10%, so it might not even last another few minutes. But yeah, for Section 2, we're going to be looking at, okay, how do we judge balancing? What does that even mean? What are the polarities, really? And so how can we guide our energy alchemy, you know? That these are the sort of workings that are going to be coming available for the second half of this level 3. Let me just think here quickly. Okay, yeah. So just to directly give the example and to set forth where we're going to move. Excuse me. All of the processes that happen within the mind, body, and spirit of you, within that beautiful triad, the way we can dissect out processes and systems. Creator consciousness determines functionality, right? And when we determine that, we sort of segregate or label things. We create more meaning. We create boundaries and purpose there, right? It has a distinct purpose, and so we have it doing a thing. It's really that basic, right? That's how creator consciousness works. And when we do that and we set that thing, yes, we're setting it because of all the processes. It has distinct processes within it. And those things are very important, yes. But what we're going to do for Section 2 is sort of look at the whole here. And when we look at the whole of it, just like when we look at the whole of the banking model, right? It's that outsider's view. Okay, so it's not even who the CFO is. It's not any of your inner workers at the corporate building or any of that. It's the customer outside, who could go to any bank that they want, another, right? But they come into yours. What did they feel as the external coming into this boundary? How do they see that bank interacting with others out there? Other banks, other industries, other customers. This third-person view, being able to view outside with the observer and see the whole as a system interacting with others now, that's about polarity. This is the second half of the function, right? Because we have the processes and what the system's doing, its reasons for functionality, all the things that keep it going and doing what it needs to do and why it does it. But there's also, okay, why is it doing it in the bigger picture, right, of the whole? Because the whole reason that it becomes unique is that it's been segregated from great other for some kind of reason. So how does it interact with all the others? This, just like our systems, when we look at polarity, it breaks down into 3, but it's helpful at first and it's most obvious because polarity looks like 2. It looks like dark and light, positive, negative. It looks like opposites, you know, and so you'll see opposites within yourself. Feel good parts, not feel good parts, you know, talents, weaknesses, things that you like, you know, attractive things, and things that are not so attractive, you know, ugly things. Love, hate, you know, we are a totality for this spectrum of exploration of those things, of duality jammed into a person. into your role. And when we look at the second half of the system, what we have to start to do, like for us as a system, right, is to appreciate our role in the whole. And to say, okay, well, my role is I'm a mother and I'm a wife and I'm a part-time worker and I'm a member of a small community and I live in a more rural sort of city, in a more rural sort of state in America. And the larger it gets, the bigger the scope, right? And I play all of these different roles and all these different transactions become available in my direct life because of the coordinates of my role, my place setting within a distinct whole, right? And so when we start to look at the second section, that's what comes into play more. It's like how you interact with the direct world. You know, it's the more of the externally based things versus the processes, which are very much internally based. And then again, we'll have, just like duality with our looking at the second section of level 3, it looks like polarity, it looks like two things. But really we have the whole. We have to remember it's 3. There's the flow happening within those 2, within your dark and your light. How do you deal with things? How do you move through things? How does your body store them and why? And what do you take on from others? What do you give to others, right? What do you give to ether? What do you take on? What's in imagination space? You know, what's in your heart? What's in your mind? What do you want to create? What are these little knowledge points that are distinct for you to play out? Because when we look at the second section, it's so important when we get this bird's eye view, observer's role, to remember it's like a mosaic, beautiful tile. Every tile, like a puzzle, has its own place it fits in, and it just fits there. And without it, the thing doesn't come together. And you can't jam another piece in there. You can, but it doesn't look right, and it won't match up good. And so we have to take a time and appreciation to look at our puzzle piece here, our fractal mosaic piece, as it is, its distinct whole shape, and love it and appreciate it for a while. See how it's reflecting its light. See what that looks like when we observe that for a while. And that's more difficult to do because it's the sum of wholes happening, and it's ever moving. It's ever calculated, you know, it's ever changing and growing. And it becomes more of sort of a philosophical practice, right, of balancing, of witnessing and observing. Never trying to tie down and tag it and force it to be seen in a way. Because when we're doing that, we're tying and negatively aligning ourselves. Enslaving our beautiful manyness. And I said this so many times, just like the banking model. People who watch my videos are probably like sick of this one, but I love it. It's just like polarity, charge, life essence, who you are and how you interact with the world around you. Okay, it's like watching a butterfly in flight go about its day, and how it goes from each place to another and drinks here and drinks there, and it rests and it sits in the sun for a while and it interacts with others and stuff. That life, that day in a butterfly's life, if you wanted to try to experience and be it, would you really go and snatch a butterfly out of the sky and pin it down into a book and try to copy and draw it intricately and then figure out the mechanics, take its wing and try to figure out how it's doing it, and maybe like move it and try to throw it and make it fly and try to build your own out of non-organic materials? And then think that you're going to actually be living the day of a butterfly? That you're even grasping anything that comes with the grace of flight? With the joy of being alive? And like that? Freeness like that? Just seeking desires and organic life? Following, you know, seeking nutrients and sunlight? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more to that, the capacity that happens with that you could never tie down, that you could never nail down. You can't make it happen on purpose, you know? Yes, it happens on purpose. Yes, it's beautiful and graceful. It's witnessable. But it's ever-changing and moving. And the second that you try to copy and force, create your own restricted echo and say that it can only do it this way, or it should only do it this way, or this is the best way of it, or this is the explanation of it, and every other one is, you know, an outsider parameter, you know, an exception to the rule or whatever. Then we see negative alignment coming in. Wow, I see negative structures. This looks like a negative system. Why is it so restrictive? Why is there directionality forced for communication? Shouldn't communication and information, energy transactions be free-flowing? Should they be all-encompassing to anyone who so hears them, can pick them up? You know, when we create forced directionality of information, that's a hierarchy, right? That's an inverted sharing. That's slave-master cycle of negative loopings. You're forcing on another a certain thing. You give your information out free as it is and just say, here it is, lay it on the table, take it as it is, take it or leave it, like it or don't, pick a piece of it and think it's trash and keep the rest, or pick one piece and like it and throw out the rest. Who cares? It's up to you, creator consciousness out there, to take your pick of what I'm laying out, what I have casted out. I'm responsible for the casting of it. That's it. Of my truth. My process, my polarity resides on how I send out my message, how I reside within my systems, how I interact with incoming and outcoming information in my system. Never has anything to do with another system out there. Because in fact, I can never even be in their system. There's sacred boundary there. It doesn't allow that for great purpose, right? So yes, this is just the start and the introduction to just say, okay, for level 3 now, we're talking about inner system still, and to understand that, yes, we can dissect things. It is helpful to look at things in this sort of triad of dissection that I've talked about already, but also to remember that as we're diving deeper into things, well, what's the whole? Never forget the whole picture. Bring it back to the whole polarity. Remember to tie in the self system we're diving into. Remember the self and honor it enough to know it's a reflection of God, all great others. The whole journey here, your whole purpose and polarity. There's a whole system at work here that speaks for itself, that is held accountable for itself, that must stand in the presence of itself and own it at the end of the day. It must speak for itself, and it will be held accountable to God for its journey back to itself and what it did on its way and how it did it. That's what happens with charge. It's all about intentions and feelings, those inner conversations, the inner flow, and how you do it and how you move through it, what you cling to, what you let go of, and how and why. All of those things have to do with this second section here, the system as a whole, you as a whole inner working. I've talked for long enough. I don't want to go, I've already come to a half an hour. I want to try to keep it around 20 minutes. Long-winded, but okay. I'm going to leave it there for now, and I hope that you will check in next time. Hopefully I'll have meditations out pretty soon in the next week or so to dive into those conscious bosses a bit and help people along with gauging processes and getting down into the nitty-gritty with their workers. So that we have more wisdom to work with and more skill set when we look at the whole, right? Because we want CFOs, we want bosses and creators who have really built it from the ground up, who aren't just making rules and directions for workers in the industrial line who don't even know what the process is. Because I'm sure all of us in the real world out there have worked at jobs where we have that structure happening, where there is a directional hierarchy of information, and it isn't connected or relative to the job being done at the bottom, because people at the top have never even witnessed the job at the bottom, But better processes happen, better troubleshooting, better positive changes for the whole system, better productivity, and better outcomes will happen for the system as a whole if we actually do the integral work down at the base level with the workers first. Hoping that people will be doing that work for themselves out there. I know that I am eternally doing that work myself, and I will catch you around next time.